Do you want to learn how to draw a rose? Then this video is for you. Stay tuned. So we're going to begin to draw our rose by making a deep U shape. Just like this. This is going to be the left bottom petal and the right. So what we're going to do now that we've made our U shape is we're going to come in and we're going to bring it up and down. Just like that. We're going to create another petal by coming up, just like this, and back down. On this side, we're going to come around and meet back here. It looks kind of strange at the moment, doesn't it? Now what we're going to do is we're going to create our rose, and I'd like our rose to end about here. At least the center of the rose. So we're going to come up just like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come from this point about here, and we're going to bring it up at an angle like this. Now you might be wondering why I have all these weird lines. It's okay, because we're actually going to erase some of them, and then we're going to use color pencils to go over them. So from this point up here, we're actually going to bring it down to about here. Like that. And then up here, we're going to bring it down to about here. Over here, we're going to make a nice spiral that's going to touch this side. And then we're going to take this whole piece and we're going to bring it around. Like that. I just like to bring these down like that. So now that we have our flower, let's go ahead, just so it doesn't bother us, let's go ahead and erase some of these lines, like so. Remember, if you don't erase all of the lines, that is okay. We're going to be coloring over them. Now for the base of our flower here, we're going to create a base, actually. It's going to be just a small little jagged line like this, because we want something for our flower to rest on. And now the stem of the flower is going to come out here at a curve. So if you have ever dealt with flowers, you'll know that these typically do not go straight. They always want to curve towards the sun, and you always cut them at an angle. So you might be wondering what this is for. Well, this is actually for a collaboration I'm doing with a few other artists for the premiere of Beauty and the Beast. So that's what we're doing. Now this is actually going to be a petal, because if you remember in the movie the petals were falling, and I want to make this look a little bit more realistic. So we're going to make these small little really random lines, and it's going to make it look as though the petals are kind of curving a little bit. Let's make another one here. Another one here. One here. And one here. So since this is Beauty and the Beast, I want to create a dome that's going to go over the whole rose. If you're interested in checking out some of the other videos where people have made their art inspired by Beauty and the Beast, I'm going to leave a playlist link in the description so that you could definitely check them out, because there's some amazing artists that are doing some wonderful work. So please definitely go and check them out. So that is our dome, and because I want to make this look as though it's not just floating in midair, I'm actually going to create a line in the background. Now you might have wondered, why did I not put the line in the middle? Well, that's a good question. Actually, I'm going to create a line that's a little bit above it, because in real life, glass actually alters background lines like that. So that's why it looks like that. I know it looks a little bit weird, but I think it's going to look great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start coloring and shading, and what we're going to do is we're going to start filling in one color. This is where you're really going to start to see more of the time lapse, because I know you guys don't want to go and watch me color the whole thing. So let me go ahead and start with that. Let's get some colored pencils. So now that we have our rose already drawn, we're going to start to color the rose. We have 4 different shades of red. So the first one is going to be this nice pink. It's a rose pink. Next is going to be this carmine red. Carmine red. And then we're going to use a crimson red. And finally, a crimson lake. So let's go ahead and start laying down a little bit of color. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our light pink and we're going to fill in the entire rose head. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go in these small, tiny circles. You'll notice that I continue to turn my pencil. That way it retains a sharpness and it doesn't go dull quite as fast. I'm going to go ahead and fill in this entire rosebud. And I'll see you back here in a second. So now that we are done laying the layer of pink, we're going to come in with our next color, which is the crimson red. Sorry, the carmine red, excuse me. So we're going to come in with the carmine red. And while we're here, I actually forgot to do the pink in our petal. Remember, Beauty and the Beast had a petal that was down here on the ground. So I think since our picture is inspired by Beauty and the Beast, we definitely want to make sure that we have that petal down here as well. Perfect. All right. So now we're going to go in, like I said, we're going to go in with that carmine red. We're going to do the same thing, but this time, and you may have a slight difficulty seeing the pencil marks, and that's going to be okay. What we're going to do is we're going to end up taking a pen, probably a Sharpie afterwards. So we want to go and find out where are our shadows going to be. I think our light source is going to come from this direction. So we definitely want to make sure that everything under the little petal, the curves, we want to make sure that all of those have a nice shadow to them that extend slightly down. This entire section here is going to end up being in shadow. It's going to make sure that that we have some depth. Right here is another petal that curves over, so we're going to make sure we put some shadow behind that. Just gives it a little more realism. And since this petal tucks into itself, I also want to create a small shadow here as well. We do want this to be a red rose, so we want to make sure that we have a little bit more red Here's where another petal curves over, so we're going to go ahead and just come under here. In our two darker colors, we're really going to come in and really etch out where our major shadows are. Right now I'm just kind of trying to lay the red in there. So here's where another petal comes in and curves, so we're going to go ahead and make our shadow there. We have another small one here, like so. There's definitely some shadows in here as well, because remember, this is actually all folded. Alright, I think that'll be good. Let's go ahead and lay our next red. Our next red is the crimson red. So this is where we're really going to start getting into those shadows. So we want to make sure that underneath where all the petals kind of curve over, we really want to make sure that we come in and make it darker. And of course, since this part is all on the bottom, we really want to make sure that's nice and red. Here's where another petal comes over, so we're going to come in here and just make sure that's nice and dark. And go along where it's folded. Our next fold over is right here, so let's come in here and make it nice and dark. Here's another fold over, so make it nice and dark and bring that shadow down slightly. Here's another one right here. Now you'll notice we started with a somewhat light color that maybe wasn't going to necessarily be our intended color. We're going to make this darker as well. I did that to make sure that we had some base color laid down so that it kind of really brings some of the other colors in. Let's make that nice and dark. I'm just kind of going over where there would be a slight shadow due to the rose petals being folded in. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take that darkest color of the Crimson Lake. Now the important piece with this is we don't want to completely cover our rose. That's not the purpose of this. So we're coming in and we're just going to really put it in those spots where it would be the absolute darkest. So the absolute darkest would be right here along the side. We're going to stop there. It would be right under where the petal curves over. Alright, so just about done filling in those shadows. Like I said, we don't want to go too crazy with these, with the really dark, because that's not what this color is meant for. This color is really just to add some depth. Alright, perfect. Now we did not do our rose petal. I will actually do that off camera, so don't worry. But we do need to start working on the rest of our rose. So let me go ahead and grab some greens and I'll be right back. So I have our greens we're going to be using. The first one is going to be, there we go, sorry, a spring green. That's our highlight. Our mid-tone is the grass green. And then our darkest shadow color is going to be simply dark green. So remember, if our light source is coming in from this direction, we still need to keep that consistent through the rest of what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to still do a very light fill of our grass green. Sorry, this is our spring green. So I'm just going to go in and fill all of this with the same color. I just want, like our pink that we use, that nice rose pink, I just want to lay down a color so that it really helps the other two look good. And this is going to end up being our highlight. So since this stem is actually under the rose, it's not going to have a whole lot of light to it. But keeping with the light source, if it's coming from this direction, this side will be the lightest. So we're going to hang on to that, but just put it aside. And next, let's go ahead and take that medium green, and we are going to fill everything down here under the rose. We are going to go ahead and fill that. Now for the stem itself, if we know that the shadow is going to be on this side, then we're going to come in and we're just going to slightly fill it, not all the way. And notice I'm still moving in those circular motions. So you might be saying, well, this is looking really weird, kind of scaly and kind of like a snake, kind of. Well, what we're going to do is we are going to use a product called Gamsol. And it actually blends these colors together. That's one of the things I really like about Prismacolors, and I know that they can be kind of expensive. What you could do is you could definitely go ahead and just get them one by one as maybe you get funds, or you know what, hey, use some Crayolas. You don't have to have the best. As long as you're drawing, that's all that matters. So here we go, I have a dark green. Now with this, underneath the rose, I'm not going to color the whole thing. I'm just going to come in right at the bottom of where the rose meets. That's where that natural shadow would be. Now under where that is would be a shadow, so I'm going to come in here just slightly. So remember, our shadow is on this side, so we're going to come in and just put a smaller shadow along that side. Nothing in nature is one solid color, ever. And that's kind of the philosophy I'm using here. All right. Looking good so far, doesn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and finish off our petal, and I think I'm going to also put a wood grain on the floor, and I will meet you back and we'll add some magic to this flower. Stay tuned. So I have finished the wood underneath off the camera. I'm probably going to end up doing a video on how to make nice wood. But for now, I'm actually going to break out my Sharpies. And because I really want the dome to stand out, as you can see down here, you really can't see where that glass is anymore. I'm just going to go over that with a Sharpie. Now I opted not to use a black Sharpie because I felt that that was just going to be a little bit too harsh. Usually whenever someone does glass, they usually do it in like a blue. So I thought it might look nicer if I did something in like a navy blue. So I'm using my navy blue Sharpie. And I'm just going around. You'll notice that I'm also moving my picture around as I go as well. I want to make sure I have as much control as possible. Perfect. That's our rose so far. So I am going to outline the rose, but for now I think that what we need to do is we need to get some Gamsol, which is this. As you can see, I got it at Hobby Lobby for $8. But it's really just a solvent, and it's going to help kind of bring to life some of this rose. I am not going to do the floor. I really want to make the floor kind of look that rustic look, so it's going to stay that way. But let me go ahead and grab my paintbrush so that we can put some Gamsol on it, and we'll get started. Alright, we're back. So I have a set of paintbrushes. Let me go ahead and show you what those look like. The Folk Art, I got them at Walmart. So they don't have to be anything horribly expensive, and the one I'm using has a somewhat fine tip. So what I'm going to do is I'm just putting it inside of that Gamsol and moving it around a little bit. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I just want to go right over that Gamsol a little bit. Now as you can see, it kind of blends it together. Now you need to be careful because you can overblend. I did not want to put a Sharpie on there just yet because I didn't want to ruin the picture with accidentally getting the Sharpie. So what I'm doing now is I'm blending the darker pieces first, and then I'll come in and do the light ones. So I'm doing where all those shadows are. So like I said, we're doing just the darker pieces first. We will go in and do the other ones. But what we're doing is we just want all those layers to blend nice and seamlessly. So what's funny is I actually, I made a very small video. This is like my third time I've actually done this video due to whatever issues with the camera. But got mad. I know that you guys probably get mad at your art all the time. But I got really mad and I just decided to go and put Gamsol on my picture and just rant and rave on Facebook. And what's funny is someone had actually said it looks like you're doing a paint by number. You're just adding water into something that's already done. But no, I mean, as you can see, we did the whole thing. So yes, you can actually blend a little bit too much, and that's actually what had happened that day, is that I blended just a little bit too much. It doesn't take a lot. It does not need to be a lot. Now maybe you want to use a bigger brush. That's fine. I like to use the smaller brush because I can get into those smaller areas. Like this one. And as you can see, we're just doing all the really dark pieces. All right. Now the beauty of using Gamsol is that if you need to come back in and maybe a piece of it wasn't filled in all the way, or maybe you want to make some other adjustments to it, you can do that without ruining the texture of your paper. That's why I like using Gamsol. And it lasts a while too, but it really makes the colors pop. You guys saw what it looked like beforehand. All right, so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to do the light pieces. Those are the highlights. We will do the stem as well. I like doing these in separate times because that way I know for a fact that my dark is not going to blend into my light. I mean, of course, unless I need it to, like I will down here. But it really makes a big difference. What do you think so far? It's looking kind of nice, isn't it? So for now, we're going to stop with the game. Oh, that's right. We have to do our stem. Hold on. Let's do the stem. Oh, you should have stopped me. All right, here we go. Do you see how the Gamsol's making that green just pop? I love it. It's like a magic wand. All right. I love it. Just look for some spots that may still be a little bit rough. Just go in a little bit more. Very good. Okay, so now what we're going to do, just to kind of complete the look, we're going to go in and we're going to define our flower. I have two different color blues, light cerulean blue and Copenhagen blue. At the moment, I know I'm definitely going to use this light blue. The way we're going to use this is I'm just going to go slightly on the outside, and I just want to do a nice wash. Just a nice little wash of color. I just want it to look as though it's magic. Bring it around. Even though it's in the shadow, it's still magic, so we still want to make sure that we cover it. I don't want too much blue here on the stem because the magic is actually in the rosebud itself. But it is enchanted, and I don't want to put any blue here because this petal has fallen off, so it is no longer magic. All right. Perfect. Now, I'm actually halfway considering not putting Gamsol on the blue because I don't want it to be too strong. I don't want it to really be too much. I just want it to be a light shading of blue. I haven't quite made up my mind yet, so we're just going to continue on. Now that we have most of that done, I want to go in, like I said, I want to really define what this flower looks like. So Beauty and the Beast was a cartoon, so we should really kind of make this rose look a little bit more like a cartoon. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow those lines. that we drew in pencil. So cartoons are done in a style called cell shading. So that's where all the outsides are typically outlined in a darker color. My intention was definitely not to make this lifelike in any kind of way. My intention was really to keep it cartoon-like. That's something that I prefer to draw cartoons. I think it just fits my style nicely. Alright, so now we're going to come up here. As you can see, using the gray Sharpie really does give it more of a cartooned look, doesn't it? But it outlines it. Now, if you want, then you can always outline it in maybe even a red Sharpie or a pink Sharpie. You could definitely do that. I do prefer the Sharpies. There's just something about a really nice Sharpie. So the ink flows a lot more, so it's a lot more fluid, which is really nice because that way I don't have to worry about pressing hard to make it come out. It just glides smoother. And since I've been going over this, I actually think I am going to introduce that dark blue for our magic. So we're just going to come in with the dark blue and outline the whole rose. And we will come in with the lighter blue next to it. There you go, that way you can see what I'm doing. With this dark blue, I am trying to go and keep the line fairly thin and fairly close to the rose. And that will be it. Not bad. Not bad at all, if I do say so myself. And, well, I do. So let's come in and let's spread a little bit more of this light blue around. I don't want a whole lot of blue on that, on the stem. And I may have probably overblued this. I don't know. I just think it should really have magic. Really show that it's magic, you know? Because it is enchanted. Are you looking forward to the Beauty and the Beast live action movie? I know I am. So that actually comes out, in case you're wondering. It does come out March 17th. Pretty sure it comes out March 17th. I am going to... I'm not going to be there for that. I'm not going to lie to you. I really hate movie theaters with a passion. Something about the uncomfortable seats, the paying like $50 for a thing of popcorn, it just seems a little bit dumb to me. But I will be one of those that will try to own it as soon as it comes out. I will try to go and have a copy of them. Who knows, maybe I'll rent it on Netflix, but I'm definitely not going to go to the movie theater. So as you can see, I did decide to do a little bit of Gamsol on the blue. You have to be very careful once you come down into the wood, because we don't want the wood and the blue to mix. Also, we don't want the green and blue to mix, so that's why having a smaller paintbrush to apply this makes a lot of sense. Really the same with the red. We don't want the red and the blue to mix. The purple roses sound nice, but not for this. I am going slightly heavy on the Gamsol towards the outside because I wouldn't mind if the color pushed out into a nice gradient on the outside, but I'm being very careful to make sure that it's not going into the red. The great thing is that Gamsol dries and it's though it was never there, so you're not going to have a wet mark when you're done. Alright, so I am going to let that dry. There we go. I am going to let that dry. And I'm going to focus on that line in the back. And then I think we should be really close to being done. So I have just a regular brown Sharpie. Remember, I just want to kind of give it a cartoon feel. So then all we have to do is wait for it to dry and we are pretty good to go. To make a few finishing touches, what we can do is add a little bit of shadow on the wood. Now, if you decide to do a little bit of shadow, I would not go in with the Gamsol because it'll make it really apparent. There we go. And I really don't want it to stand out over the wood. I want the wood to be seen. And for the rose coming down, it's not as close down to the ground, so my shadow should not be extremely heavy. But you'll see that I did kind of make here under the petal, I did make that kind of heavy. And dare I say it, I think all that's left is to sign it. So we're going to go and take our black Sharpie. Once I find that. Well, I can't find that, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead, sign it with blue. And that's about that. I hope you enjoyed this tale as old as time, where I've shown you how to draw a rose. If you'd like to see what some other artists have inspired by the live action Beauty and the Beast, then I'm going to give you guys the links down inside the description for the playlist that has all of them. And if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more, go ahead and hit that like button. That way I know you did enjoy this. And if you want to see when the next one comes out, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. But as always, stay creative. Bye, guys.